Welcome to our 11th CTO Roundtable. At the moment, we have already 46 participants that joined, so I want to thank you for spending this time with us today. Before we move forward, I have two organizational announcements. We would really like to get as many questions as possible, so just type your question in Q&A section in a Zoom here, so that I will discuss it with the panel. I would encourage you to use this Q&A tab instead of chat, because in a chat, as you can see, there is a lot of information already there, so I can miss some of your questions. So please do it through the Q&A tab. And the second announcement is that our webinar is recording, so a recorded version will be available. So don't worry if you miss out something. So now I believe we can start. Today we have a very experienced panel. So first, I would like to welcome Martin Woiwód. Martin is based in Germany and is the software strategist at Reservix. Martin strongly believes that the key to producing a high quality software, the software that solves real problems for its users, is to have solid and thorough requirement engineering. Welcome, Martin. Today.
Hello.
You may recognize the second panel member, as he's a consultant, an author, a conference speaker, as well as a publisher, Paul Gerard. Paul has, I believe, already more than 30 years of experience in software development, testing, and consulting. He has given keynote talks and tutorials to many testing conferences across Europe, the USA, Australia, and South Africa. So this is really impressive. Paul is based in the UK. Welcome, Paul.
Hi.
Last but not least, Ruben Vosmir. Ruben is the VP of Engineering in Fiberbank. He believes that the quality of products we deliver to our clients is strongly determined by the people and the culture that make up the organization. And we'll have a chance to discuss about it today. So Ruben is based in the Netherlands. Welcome, Ruben, to today's session.
Thank you.
I'm David Krala, taking the role of quality of service at the software house. Personally, I spent most of my professional life taking care of quality in organizations. I'm very happy to be your host today. So before we move forward, let's get to know our panel a little bit better. So if you live in Germany and you've decided to buy an online ticket for some event, then you will probably use a Reservix system. So Reservix is a leading online ticketing provider in Germany that offers, of course, a wide range of tickets, concert tickets, and also provides a digital stage to artists and concerts. So Martin, can you give us a short presentation of yourself and Reservix, please?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Reservix looks like a ticketing system. So this is the customer-facing services. Actually, there's much more behind the scenes. We define ourselves as a service provider for all kinds of event organizers. It's not limited to ticketing. It's also access control. It's online marketing services. It's also not only software. It's also like operative services. And I think the strength is to understand all these kind of different cultures. It's very different if you talk to a sports club, like a well-known football club, or a 200-year-old theater, but just publicly funded. So these are very different types of people having different needs, and it's quite interesting to actually provide solutions for this kind of diversity in the cultural scene and in sports.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Martin. Welcome again. So, Paul, you are a principal in Gerald Consulting Limited company and the host of the Technology Leadership Forum as well as a co-founder of JPG Associates and the Testing Festival Conference. As I mentioned before, you're also an author, and I would like to highlight or show up one book that you wrote. It's the Tester's Pocketbook. So this is, I believe, a comprehensive guide to understand testing better, right? In this book, you don't say how to test, of course, because this is a pocketbook, and you would probably have to create some huge book to say it, right? How? Rather, I believe you help readers to understand why we test, what the tester's mission is, and I believe this is important aspect, how to get the buy-in from the management, right? You also explained the relevance of testing for the business. So very essential information in this book. So that's the reason I placed it here, because I see it personally very valuable.
Yeah, quite thin as well.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, you are also a conference speaker attending conferences across Europe, but also the USA, right? So as we may see, there's just few of them that I just placed here because I don't want to provide, multiple animations. But anyway, I'm really honored to have you on the panel today. So can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, I started life as an engineer. So I did an engineering degree, and my first day at my first job, I worked for consulting engineers, and the partner in the company said, "We have no work for you today, but here's a computer that got delivered last week. Go and have a play and tell us what we can do with it." So my fate was sealed. So I never did much engineering. I just got into software almost immediately, not intentionally. So I became, over the course of 2 or 3 jobs, I became a programmer, developer, and a kind of project manager after a few years, and then got into testing in the 1990s, and I've been doing that ever since. So I've done testing. I write test strategies. I've been a test manager on small projects, huge projects. I teach, I coach people. I've written a few books, and I do conference work, as you say. So I've done a bit of everything. So jack of all trades, master of none, maybe. That's me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I hope that we will hear today a very good experience that you will share with us. Ruben, I'm really happy that you are here with us. So you work for Fiberbank, and Fiberbank is a banking as a service. You actually created banking as a service platform, right? So Fiberbank offers financing solutions to small and medium enterprises. And what's more, everything is done fully online, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And you just went live with your platform last week after a year or maybe more of hard work done by the whole team. So congratulations for that. This is a big achievement. So could you tell us also a little bit more about yourself, your role at Fiberbank, and of course about this banking as a service platform?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction as well. Yeah, so I'm relatively new to this industry. I fell in basically into things that are hype right now. I fell into cloud native. I fell into DevOps. That basically shapes what I'm doing right now. I started some time ago at a spin-off of a major Dutch bank, which also had the same aim from ground up, create something, a digital experience for employees, for customers. And more recently, so it was, I think, early this year, I joined Amsterdam Trade Bank, which had exactly the same ambition, going from something which wasn't cloud native, which wasn't digital in any possible way, by any stretch of the imagination, be able to pivot this bank back into, fully 21st century, let's say, and being able to create something that would be able to evolve along, but also creating the teams, creating the culture in here that would deliver. And the product that we have is, in the end, relatively simple. On one hand, the ambition we have is to deliver small, medium enterprises across Europe with the loans that allow them to do what they're great at, to grow, to expand, to create new value. And on the other hand, that's what we went live with a few days ago, be able to attract savings money from private individuals to basically fuel the small and medium enterprises with. So we have one leg done. The second one is in development, where basically our expansion in terms of SME lending and across Europe will be growing. And in doing so, I think for me, that's of course the exciting part, besides, let's say, the core of what I'm doing, is creating a platform in which we also are able to deliver what we use ourselves to others, which we've been doing, for instance, with our sister company Fiber, called the same way in the UK, that uses us as a banking platform for them, and they build a bit and they use a bit of what we deliver to them, and we have the ambition to extend that as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for this information. Okay, I believe we are ready to start our discussion. So for me, delivering a high quality products or services is, I believe, essential for each company to become successful. I believe in it. And of course, these companies have different strategies to achieve it, right? So there are a lot of companies out there with their quality policy printed out on the walls for everybody to see. Those quality policies can state about some standards, quality gates, whatever it's called, and it's perfect. But their employees, I believe, probably knows that this policy by heart, but do they really care? That's a good, I believe, question. And for me, to be successful with delivering high quality products or services, we need to build a culture of quality in organizations. And that's the reason I want to discuss about it today. So what is it exactly? That's, I believe, the first question that comes to our minds, right? So let me just ask you to share with our audience your understanding of quality culture. So Paul, I will start with you. How would you define a quality culture? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think I told you last week that I don't like the word quality, so I'm not going to start on the best place, am I? But let me explain what I mean. Is the thing about quality is it's a relationship between a product and its users or its owner, if you like. So it's a very hard thing to pin down. Everybody's definition is different. So I'm happy to use the word quality, but it's a soft, fluffy word. It's not a hard definition. Okay, so that's the first problem I have. So I want to suggest that maybe we should look at quality from a quality culture. To me, separates is separate from a delivery culture. And to be honest, I think we should be talking as much about a delivery culture, delivering a complete solution, perfect if possible, never possible, I know. But and so I don't like the idea of separating quality from delivery. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there we go. So my definition, I would say that if we test everything, we test often, we test early, we test late, we test all the time. So it's not just about testing, but testing is all pervasive as a first thing. Yes, you can say everybody does testing, everybody's responsible, but then again, if you say everybody is responsible, no one is responsible because no one leads the challenge. So I like to use the words testing and assurance. And assurance is kind of maybe you give someone a role to say, look, you keep an eye on the testing throughout a program or project or whatever you're working in. And so the culture is not something that you can change. I think you can only encourage a culture because you can't. I mean, culture is something we're all from different countries, so we all have our own culture. If I tell you, you're going to be British from now on, you're going to say, no, you can't do that. So have to be very careful about trying imposing a culture. We have to set an environment, if you like, that people can deliver good work. And so that's the way I would look at it.
So can I summarize it in a way that this is an approach where everyone in everything what that person does thinks about the quality, right, on a daily basis. So we can also say it's this is an environment that quality is a responsibility of every employee in a company. That's something that should be natural, just to assure just to have this assurance of a quality that of the product that we produce at the end. Okay.
I think
And
so.
thank you very much, Paul. And Ruben, how do you see this?
I must say the word delivery in what Paul just said stuck with me, because that was exactly also where my thought was going. Well, in the end, for me, if I put that big red button that is release, right, deploy to a production environment, give it to the customer, call it however you want. It's in the end, it's not technical. I mean, we do technical stuff to make it happen, but the customer gets to enjoy a new feature, gets to deal with stuff that was wrong if actually we didn't assure quality, and give that big red button to basically anybody that is building that solution. If they know what they're doing, if they understand the value of what they're bringing to the customer, but also the risk there is in bringing something bad to the customer, and they have the confidence to push that button, then for me, that culture apparently is there. So I'm taking the negative footprint, right, of that quality culture. But if a developer feels, or any engineer, by the way, feels confident giving his feature to the customer, it means that he had done everything possible. He used the tools that were provided. He used the knowledge that was provided. He asked for help wherever it was needed in order to make sure that the customer is happy with whatever got delivered. And then we have that one. Of course, there's plenty of assumptions underneath, right? If I take the junior just off the bench of university, go, here's a button, probably we'll start pressing on the button to release things and we will break stuff. Absolutely. But then again, then comes that culture in which we're coaching and growing and so on, in order to get to that point where we know what it means to press the release button, but also feel comfortable doing it at any point in time, under stress, under pressure, under solving an incident, 100 customers waiting for something that failed. We still feel confident doing that. And then I think we have achieved that highest standard of confidence in our quality. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Delivery. I think, Paul, thanks for getting that one started.
That's a very interesting point of view and very true, right? Martin, how about you?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I like to say that I like this measurement of quality culture by pushing the release button, not feeling adrenaline. I really like that measure. But yeah, also disclaimer from my side is, as I got invited to this panel, I told everybody that I'm not the right one for this panel because I'm not a QA engineer and I'm not a software testing specialist. But people assured me that I'm exactly right. So I have something to say, and I think I do actually. My background is more in math and science, and I mutated into a product owner and requirement engineer. And so I have a bit of an outsider's perspective, but that might be valuable. I always see when it comes to this culture, quality culture thing, that I see 3 different meanings of quality in a software business. I always see. Say the first one is a developer's view on quality. And there's this old joke that somebody goes into the bar and then orders 1 beer, orders 5 beers, orders no beer, -5 beers, something's not on the menu, and this is all handled perfectly. This is the developer's view, and this is a couple of unit tests and stuff. And then he goes to the toilet and everything explodes. And what does that mean? The problem is with software, and that's, I think, very particular to software engineering, that software can fail in funny ways, which we don't expect, and you need a different 90-degree perspective on that. So somebody who's not familiar with the product, who just figures out all the weird things where things explode. And this is, I think, the QA engineers. A good QA engineer has this 90-degree view to that, what the developer thinks about quality. And this is, I think, more my world. This is this thing of what are we actually building here, and for whom, and does it make sense for the people? And this is, if you can imagine, the coffee bar built by people who never drink coffee in public, have no idea how bar should work, how it should feel, and never been there and have no idea. I've never talked to people who actually drink coffee, and they might be able to build a coffee bar, but it will be very awkward. Still, it might work. Yeah, it might pass all the tests. Also, it might not explode, but still, it's not something that makes sense. And I think a good quality culture is when these 3 viewpoints get together and respect each other and work together and don't say, no, this is what quality is like. And then there's an openness to discuss all these 3 aspects.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's
So
a very good
that's my answer.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's very good one. So these are indeed very good definitions. Each one you provided, right? So based on what you said, I can summarize it at least in a way that, can we say that a quality culture is some kind of an environment when team members truly care, but each one of them truly care about the quality of their work? That's one point, right? Doesn't matter if I'm developer, QA, DevOps, whoever, right? I should work on a daily basis with quality in my mind. Another one, and I should make decisions on a daily basis based on achieving that level of quality that we define together as a team, right? I mean, the team is the development team plus customers, right? Or the representatives. That's also important to remember. So whenever I was checking this or digging into this topic and trying to understand the culture or the quality culture much better, I found one very nice definition, that a culture is what people do when no one is looking. Do you agree? According to the quality culture, should be in the same way?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe
it's like the definition of morals and kindness. It's like what you do when people aren't looking. You know, do you behave well? You know, so you know, do you? If you, this is a slight distraction, but you're quite right. I think it's culture is kind of, you do it automatically without thinking. No one tells you to do it. It's just the way you do things. And encouraging those behaviors, I think there are some things you can tell people to do and say, put some conditions and saying that you've got to have checkpoint meetings and you've got to be honest and you've got to be of integrity. But people have to you know, you lead them, you show them water, but they have to walk to it to drink it. You know, it's like a horse, you know, and you can't force a horse to drink water, but it's kind of a difficult thing to do. It's a human problem, not a technical problem. I think that's the way I would.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you just smoothly went to my another question. You actually almost answered it, but let's wait for a moment. I just checked the question panel. I have two questions from our audience. So let me just read the first one. We have a great culture at our IT outsourcing agency, but how do we maintain the same culture when offering team augmentation to clients with different cultures? Would you like to answer this one?
I don't want to do all the talking, so I don't know wait to see.
Well, it's for me it's an interesting one because that's actually currently conversations we're even having also with a software house where we have different habits, different cultures, and in the end try to merge that into still making sure that we fit that level of quality at the end, but through different means, right? And it doesn't mean one is wrong, the other one is good. It's just a different approach to absolutely the same goal. And having that clear for me is really top of mind. And then reasoning back on what we can do to merge them or to make changes in way of working is secondary. If anybody comes in and says, well, you know what, if quality is guaranteed, and that's the only group that needs to deal with that, everybody comes from one same culture, well, that's fine. I mean, again, we measure by the result, we measure by the quality that's delivered, we measure by the number of problems we have with customers down the line, we measure by what is done to get to that point. I like the notion of not having to necessarily enforce how it's done, but the result is basically the bar we need to clear. It becomes difficult, and that's, I think, where this question is extremely accurate. When you try to mix, one has the habits of reaching that bar in one way, the other in the other way, and then it comes down to humans, right? How do we understand what the other one is trying to achieve, how he's doing that, and how that can improve, increment what we're doing? There's always value.
Yeah, I'd like to quickly add a bit to this. with an anecdote, and then I'm getting to something with that. So I still remember talking to a client who said, with this new software, we have one very important requirement. What's that? Okay, and this is that we can go back to the start view from any view. And this is obviously, if you just use the template for the front end, it's already been taken care of, and it's very easy. But why do they ask that? And that's the point I was making, is just ask questions that help understanding the culture of the other party. And obviously here the reason was they had to use a very old legacy system for the last 10 years, wasn't able to do that. So their main pain point was actually this very simple thing. It's stupid, obviously, you can do that. But I mean, this might be trivial, but first of all, realize that there are different cultures, then be open and ask questions that has the sole aim to assess what that culture is and be open to. And then things can resolve quickly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And let me just read a second question. There is a growing movement in tech industry that can be formulated shortly in this statement. Testing is essential. Testers, as unique craft dedicated people, are not. Testing is for everybody and by executed everybody. What are your opinion on that? Ruben, Paul, Martin?
Well, I've got a slight answer for the first question, because I kind of pushed it away a little bit. I mean, the first thing about sort of adopting another person's culture is, if you're a consultant, you always have to work in other people's cultures. So the first thing is you have to keep your eyes and ears open to watch how people behave. So, for example, I remember working for an oil company, and it was a very clear thing that happened. If you went to a meeting and people didn't know you, you were obliged to introduce yourself, say, hello, I'm Paul, I'm doing this, I'm working for this person, this is what I'm trying to achieve, blah, blah, blah. And so very quickly you pick up the human aspects, but that's human nature. You do that very quickly. You have to ask questions and observe how people behave in certain situations. And another one was like, in meetings in that oil company, whenever a decision was made, the next question was, who provides the leadership? And I thought that was really interesting, is who is going to lead around the table? Who is going to take this job on? So the culture was one of volunteering, of leadership, and taking responsibility and accountability. So you have to have your eyes and ears open. And as Martin said, you have to ask good questions and say, well, how do you react to these situations, and try and pick it up? You have to be what's it called? I can't remember the name of people who study civilizations. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, I can't remember the word. But to the second question, is the question, testing is essential, but testers are not essential? Right. Well, that's not true. It's just not true. And I don't see a movement there. I see tool vendors marketing tools as if tools can do what humans can do. And that is simply not the case. It might be in some years' time, but today it's not possible, because test execution tools, let's say, if people are focusing on test execution, I've got a thing called what I call a new model, which is like the way that testers think. And test execution tools support one of those 10 thinking activities. So the other 9 activities we still have. So tools are not going to replace testers. Tools cannot, testers are essential today, as they always were. That might change in the future, but I think it's years or maybe decades away. We're not there yet. So I disagree with the first statement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I think maybe testing tools, automation, they tend to produce a lot of false positives. So there might be, especially like static code analysis and all these things, might be valuable, and you can get valuable insight. I think the danger is to get flooded with false positives, and then you start tweaking the system and never get it really to a sweet spot. So this is something which is also like a human mind can help with, and also, as I mentioned, it helps having people who don't have a stake in the actual product or project, and can look on this 90 degrees perspective, and then they find the few issues that really get the thing to explode. If everybody is just having the product mindset, And this can help if this has written tester or QA engineer on it. Something I learned also the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the question actually from Pavel. I know Pavel from actually previous jobs, so it's interesting because we work together, and quite of the stupid things I'm going to say today and the smart things are actually some things I learned from him as well. Him being actually properly trained QA person, and me just being somebody repeating things that I found around. But the interesting bit I've seen, at least in the way we collaborated, was in the end I wouldn't have been able in the previous company to work, and we wouldn't have delivered the quality we did without him. On the other side, was he testing, or was his team testing everything? Far from. The transition he made and we made together for all the teams that were working with us was actually sharing that knowledge, sharing that insight, providing the tools to do the right thing. I think that also kind of anticipates a little bit a later question, but so doing without, I don't think so. But the let's say the tester role or the QA role as such can evolve and can step away from what it has been for quite a long time, to move into a space where other people contribute to different effects into that framework, into that culture, into building quality, without having it all on their shoulders. Although that 90-degree orthogonal view I recognize, and that's actually why a lot of people I've enjoyed working so much with had that view, and it's exciting to see that challenge in those conversations. Absolutely. But being able to coach and teach others to start having another view as well adds so much more and skills interestingly across an organization when you manage to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ruben, I know that you are doing some changes in your teams, right? So that not everyone right now is responsible for the quality assurance, right? And this is also an approach that it's not common in many companies, right? That have separate testing team, QA engineers, and so on. So how do you see this change? Is it still referring to this question if testing is essential, but the testers not? Do you think this change anything? Let's say this kind of approach that everyone is responsible for testing.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps two notes or disclaimers or comments before I start. One, I work in a regulated industry where basically producing problematic code, any of it, and not being in control of changes or introducing broken features is not only a problem for us in our conversation with our customers, but becomes very quickly a problem for a supervisory body, a Dutch central bank in our case, or a European central bank at the previous company, because those are the bodies that look at what we do. So there's a high level of pressure on delivering quality just for the fact that we deliver quality, not just because it might have a business impact, right? On the other side, in both cases, I've been working with fairly small engineering groups. So let's say a handful of teams, 4 squads, 5 squads, take the 2 pizza squads. Basically, at most, you're ending up with, let's say, 30 engineers working on that. It's not small, but it's not big, far from. And that constraint basically, at least, has put me in a position where the choices I make are to be able to scale quality across engineering teams in a broad sense. And of course, I can reduce the number of software engineers, increase the number of testers, and try to guarantee quality through their means. The choice we've made goes a different way. It's basically, I think currently we're working with 3, let's call them automation engineers in test, or however we want to call it, just to step away from, let's say, the already kind of coined tester, QA, and so on. And they have basically two metrics for success. One is make sure that the teams, that the squads that deliver the feature get that understanding, that orthogonal view, that way of thinking, get that challenge, right? Hey, by the way, how are you going to test this through automation? What are you going to build to facilitate your own testing? And be able to have that basically in refinements, in plannings and so on, present, and grow that culture where at some point, if they're not in the team asking that question, it will still be asked. On the other side, the other metric of success they have is creating the support, the tooling, the elements that will allow an engineer to build a set of tests, functional tests, not just lower level unit tests, but functional tests across the platform in a way that doesn't take effort, that doesn't take hours and hours. In the end, if I build a feature in an hour, I want to be able to create a test in a few minutes. If that's not the case, we're doing something wrong. So finding those toolings and providing them, but also taking requests, right? I want to test something. Make it happen in a piece of framework that you deliver to me, and then it becomes very easy to do the right thing, right? To add those tests, to get that confidence by yourself. Imagine what is the worst thing that can happen, add a test for it, and deliver that, have it run in pipelines again automatically, and so on. So really going through automation, through supporting tooling, and a coaching aspect, a cultural aspect that basically is a conversation that grows. It doesn't start on day one, and on day two we're there, but it's a continued attention, of course. Yeah. And little by little we get into that space where teams are confident. There should be a significant amount of tests, all kinds of tests in there, but also view on, okay, what is the impact on the customer when I change something? That's a path we started here. This path I've seen together actually with Pavel and Jaap in the previous company. And we managed really to get there. So it's something I hope to be able to reproduce in a slightly different context still, but achieving that, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move back a little bit to our quality culture topic. We already defined it, right? So that's perfect. And now I would like to talk about the management role in implementing and growing this quality culture in an organization. So the question that I would like to ask is, how do tech leaders or managers can teach their teams to develop a quality culture? And I would like to start with Paul, because I believe you already started answering or talking about this topic just a couple of minutes ago. So what we can do, or what managers, tech leaders can do to implement it and grow it in an organization?
Well, I think the conversation about quality, I mean, I don't use the Q word, okay? So let me just set that aside. Yeah. But how I would articulate an answer is that my doorbell just rang, but never mind. I'm not going.
Okay.
How can I put that? So you have to listen to the answers to certain questions. So one question is, who are our stakeholders? What we do is we test on behalf of our stakeholders to give them information for them to make decisions. And our stakeholders might be senior management, it might be the users, developers are stakeholders if you're a tester, because you give them information to decide whether something is a bug, whether to fix it or not fix it, and so on and so forth. So the first question is, who are your stakeholders? Also, then what information do those stakeholders need? And are you behaving in ways that will deliver that information? So, you know, if the stakeholder is a user, they want to hear about their business goals and the risks to those business goals, and how testing will demonstrate that things work or don't work. You know, it's as simple as that. And so what level of information, what detail do you give stakeholders for them to make a decision to release, or to transition from system to acceptance testing, or to accept some code into the code library? These are all kind of decisions that have to be made. So I would want to hear people talking a lot about decision making and the information required to make those decisions. And so that's the conversation. If people start talking about test cases and bugs and this, that, and the other, these are important things, but that's not the purpose of testing. Those are byproducts. You know what I mean? So the deliverable of testing is information to make decisions. And so I would expect people to talk a lot about that information and the decision making that they're helping with. So that's kind of, you know, you have to keep your eyes and ears open again and ask good questions about what you're actually trying to do. And if people say, I'm going to generate lots of paperwork, that's not a good answer, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Martin, what about you? What kind of advice you can give to our audience?
I think that if I remember the question correctly, it was what can I do as a manager who has responsibilities like ensuring this quality culture. If that's the case, I think so. First of all, I absolutely agree with Paul. I like that very much, the answer. And to maybe add on it, I think what a manager can do is ensure that this whole process to produce quality software is not frustrating. Also, ensuring quality should be a frustrating experience for all the people involved. So the stakeholders should feel that the data are taken seriously. They should see that people who build the software understand how they think. That developers need to be taken seriously. They have to be actually able to understand the requirements and also feel that it makes sense to build that. If you test, the test cases should be something that actually makes sense, and this kind of thing. And I think as a manager who's experienced in one of these fields, be it a former developer or a former stakeholder, whatever, you need to get the overview and check for impediments and frustration, people losing contact with the product focus and trying to give that back to them. I think this is the main. It doesn't answer how you do it, but I think that wasn't really the question. Maybe we can also talk about that. But I think that's the most important thing from a manager's perspective.
Right.
It's also what I mostly do or try to do.
So this is just to try to help them with some challenges they may have, right? So this is, I believe, important. And Ruben, how do you help your teams with growing this quality culture?
So I think in the end, it always comes down to that simple question that's I heard actually in both answers before me. So I'm not really adding something. I'm just stating it differently, but making it easy to do the right thing. Meaning, if I feel attached to what I'm creating and it's easy for me to add through my work quality, then it becomes very, very native. And then the conversations, for instance, Paul is mentioning, translate very directly into my actions, into an element of testing, into a thought that I had about even not necessarily the testing, but actually the building of the product itself, right? That's actually where it starts. The test just proves what's underlying. And at least a day where I feel useful is a day where I improve, let's say, the conditions in which the quality originates. Removing frustration is the other side of it, right? Making it difficult to get to that point where the option is either sit on my hands for half an hour because, I don't know, a testing pipeline takes a shitload of time, which should not happen. It should be fast because otherwise I'm wasting everybody's time, creating frustration just as much. And for me, it has been also very, very long conversations I had back when I was at New 10, because our company was owned by ABN AMRO, a big bank with a very traditional mindset when it came to software development. And our approach of saying, well, you know what, I trust developers, I trust engineers to do the right thing, to add in terms of quality, to add in terms of feature, and to decide over it, to understand it. And the only thing I need to do is to check afterwards, to understand afterwards that we do the right thing. And if I understand that at some point we're deviating, act on that rather than adding a lot of stops, a lot of controls ahead of time, meaning, okay, I have 20 hoops to jump through. And only if I do that, which one's going to take me a week, eventually I will release a piece of product to the customer. And those were infinite conversations which never resolved actually. So I'm very happy right now where I am because I have less of those conversations where I just need to convince that one hoop can be removed because we provided everything that was needed for everybody to embrace. And the more that culture becomes pervasive, the less hoops you will need anyway. And you can start evidencing that very, very easily. So even in a controlled environment, in a supervised environment, it becomes easier. And at least I'm speaking from a very, very strong belief here. Sometimes I have an auditor that doesn't buy it yet, and then the conversation again extends a bit, but this is where I see us going.
Yeah, but what you are saying is that one of the important factors of building the right quality culture is the employee empowerment, right? What you said, we need to trust developers. Whenever we hire specialists, we need to believe in their expertise, right? Because we interview them, we work with them on a daily basis. So these are the specialists that should tell us how we can implement something, what we can do, what we can improve, instead of hiring them and saying them what they should do, right? This is
or hiring another group to tell them. I mean, that's what big organizations rely on. You have that one group that produces, and the second group that's hired just to tell them that they're not producing right. That never resolves and costs a lot. So reverse it. Trust. It starts with trust. It's simple.
Yeah. Okay. And you just mentioned, yes.
Can I just add a little bit to that? I think we should hire not on what people know, but on the questions they ask. Because as a tester, you're going to ask lots of questions, and it's the quality of those questions that are a measure of how good you are. Because every project's different, every program's different, every business domain is different. Yeah. It's about that questioning rather than the answering, if that makes sense.
A lot.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul, for that. In Ruben's answer, I got some key word calling costs. So, of course, each company would like to deliver a high quality products or services, right? But this requires a lot of effort just to introduce and build this quality culture. So there is a lot of effort for each employee, everyone actually, management, development team, and so on, just to work on it. And this, of course, all these actions, or I can call improvements, will generate cost for organization, right? We need to try something. Sometimes we'll have failures, but we should learn on our mistakes and so on. And my question is that, can we somehow assess the cost of the quality, right? So I know that there is a theory saying that, okay, somehow we can calculate or assess the cost of quality, right? This is some kind of a method that can tell us that, okay, the quality, we can divide it for the cost of good quality and cost of bad quality, right? And we can compare them, of course. So the cost of this good quality, so I could say that these are all the proactive actions and measurements that we take just to assess the high level of quality. So probably all the, I don't know what, trainings, workshops, we have a lot of amount of testing, requirement engineering, we hire specialists, of course. And this of course cost us, right? But on the other hand, we have this cost of so-called bad quality. So this is the cost that incur when something bad happens, right? So either internally, a lot of defects that can cause delays in delivery. We can just have to postpone our release to production, or we can have a low quality product that is useless. And what's even more frustrating, whenever this kind of issues happens in production, this can cost us a lot, right? We can see it in the, let's say, automotive sector, when, let's say, Volkswagen can ask like 200,000 clients, I'm just guessing, for the service action to the garage, right? So let's just talk a little bit. How can we optimize the cost of quality in our organization? Keeping in mind that we want to achieve the high level, of course, right? This is our main goal. So maybe, Ruben?
I'm struggling with the high level part, because it's a weird blanket for me. I'm expecting from stakeholders that they weigh the let's say, the size of a feature or the complexity of a feature against the cost it's going to have for me to build that. And I'm having those conversations with business stakeholders saying, hi, I understand you want this and this and this, but if I deliver this, it's only 10% of all the costs. So are you sure? In terms of quality, for me, it should be the same. A mistake is allowed. A problem is allowed if the impact of it is small. The high quality seems to get closer to that image of we don't make mistakes and we prevent all mistakes from getting to production. For me, the investment actually is double. On one side, it is to find the right, let's say, where do I need to guarantee quality and which things are not so important or will be caught in a different way, and which things can be fixed very quickly once I see them. And if I'm very agile in removing a problem on things that are not going to ruin me, actually, possibly I can make the choice to not spend too much on, let's say, preventing it from going to production, but actually just making sure it goes away from production very quickly once identified. And that's where for me, let's say the pre-production and the post-production environments really directly communicate in terms of costs. I can make much more cost to get to that asymptotic perfect. I can stop earlier, and that's actually on a feature base, right? Some aspects of the feature might not be perfect, might not even be seen or tested, but will recover, versus the other side of being extremely rapid at resolving. And then comes back, how quickly can I run a pipeline? How quickly can I make a change? How much hurdles do I have? If I remove hurdles, it also means I make my fix faster. And finding that balance in bad quality between, let's call it incident management, bug management, whatever we want on that side, and a certain level, a reasonable level of assurance on the pre-production. Finding that one is really what I'm going for right now. I don't have that bandwidth also to push it further, because basically under time constraint, typically you will make choices whether you want it or not on that scope of quality. I can say no, I don't make compromises there. But then also talking to shareholders, going, well, by the way, 2022 was a bit ambitious. Let's go later.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Martin, how about you? How could you share some information? How could you optimize the cost of quality in Reservix, let's say, in another company?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is actually so. I think everybody struggles with this, and the strategies, how to measure that, probably really much depend on if you are a two-person startup or somehow a big corporation. And I think you need to be careful because it quickly devolves into a question of what's the cost of everything. Yeah, because we want to develop quality products, but I was thinking about that while I was very actively listening to Ruben, and I think so. What might be a good insight is thinking about this. If you say cost of quality, also it's a bit too abstract for me. So the Q word apparently, but to get to the point, again back to the beginning where Ruben described this being able to push the release button without getting adrenaline. And you could think about cost of quality. I think about what's it worth? How much money should I spend or not getting to sleep well? As somebody who is responsible for the quality, can I sleep well? And if not, what can I apply some random amount of currency into something to improve, and the goal then should be to just improve being able to sleep well, and then think better on next morning as somebody who's responsible. And I think this might be maybe that's not even a position in controlling the mean adrenaline level of people, and maybe I'll go into a more risky, more agile strategy, and then you can or maybe I'm just very, very, very slow and everything is very safe, but maybe then I can improve that and still sleep well. And so this, like, think about cost. What kind of money can we spend to sleep well at every night? That's my insight. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Perfect. And Paul, what about you? What's your point of view?
It's a very well, let me be lazy and just say it's the wrong question again. Because I don't know how to define quality, so I can't put a value on it. Because what I do is to say, here's the cost and here's the value of something we call quality. And since no one can define it, it's a real problem. I mean, no one can sort of say, oh, quality X million euros. No, you can't do that. So what we can do is look at the cost of failure. And we could say that, okay, what, in a project that there's €1 million being, or dollars or pounds or whatever it is being invested. If this does not work, what will it cost the company? That is, if it fails in production and some disaster scenarios, and you could say it's going to cost $3 million, euros, whatever. So you can say, well, hold on, we're only going to invest $1 million. The cost of this is quite good. I mean, the comparison is pretty good, because if we can invest $1 million to save problems worth costing $3 million, that's a no-brainer, And so if you like, what you're saying is like, okay, if we do no testing and assurance, we almost guarantee we're going to have failures. So how much is the testing going to cost us? Well, it's going to cost us 200,000 to save a failure, which might cost 3 million. So that's one way of looking at it, but it's very crude. It's not scientific. It's just a gut feel thing. So one is we should look at the cost of failure and then try and speculate, but it's a speculation. It's imprecise. It's not exact. You know. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, like, what is the cost of good decision making? Because the value of what we do in testing and assurance is, I think, as both Martin and Ruben said, is like if the decision makers can sleep at night, they are confident in their decisions. So the value of what we do is how much confidence do they need? How much confidence? So in order to achieve that level of confidence, for the tester, you know, has to come up with models that describing the patterns of behavior we're going to test, whether it's process flows or decision tables or sequence diagrams or collaboration diagram or whatever it is, some model. If that model, and we can describe a way of testing using that model to say we'll cover all decisions, and the stakeholder says, if you do all those tests, that will give me if they all pass, that will give me confidence. That's good enough, and then you can put a price on that, and the stakeholder can sleep at night. Yeah. So to me, the human aspect is negotiating models which make sense to stakeholders and using those as the basis of your testing. That's easier said than done. I understand. It's not always easy to do that. In an agile team, there's not time to get too clever. But I think that's the way to do it. The other thing is optimization means compromise. And so the stakeholders have to understand that if you're going to optimize the cost of doing this, there's got to be compromise. And it's a negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this triangle saying that if you want to go fast and cheap, you will not achieve quality, right? Yeah, so thank you very much for your insight. We are running actually out of time. It's already 1 minute to 4. So let me just summarize our discussion. I had a lot of other questions to ask you, but okay, we need to finish. So do you agree if I summarize this quality culture in a way that this is an environment when I can at Friday evening hit a release button and go to sleep well without getting any stress, right? This is how we should work eventually. So thank you again, Martin. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Ruben, for sharing your experience about growing quality culture. I believe we could spend another hour to discuss about the quality aspects because this is really interesting topic. Your input was very valuable, and I believe this was very interesting discussion. I hope that in the future we can just continue these aspects, right? So with this, we close the CTO Roundtable session for today. So thank you for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.